GM. Trade of the day. GM, 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 GM. So, just looking at shitcoins in general, just look over at the 24-hour side. Most shitcoins are just pulling back, right, after they bounced off the lows. Most of them are pulling back. There's a few of them that's up a little bit, but in general, things are pulling back, right? So, obviously I got Multibit and Unibot are the main two. Multibit had a nice bounce to the lows, pulling back now. I would say if there is going to be a further run in the BRC20 narrative, I would see this pullback as being healthy, being fine. I'm still long, but this first low that it broke is kind of the important place to hold, because it swept that, then it went below it, and if all of this was a trap below, then I would just expect price to hold there and push higher if it's going to. If not, I'll cut, but won't cut yet. Unibot the same. Unibot broke out of a 5-month range and is pulling back, and this is the part generally where people panic, right? This is 5 months of range, breaks out cleanly, strong daily closes at the highs, and has a little pullback, and people panic and they sell the first. They basically sell the first dip before it ends up trending all the way higher. I don't know if that's going to happen, but I do know that it's dumb to sell anything when it's just broken its downtrend. So obviously Bitcoin is kind of chopping up and down, but the way the market's moving, I'm expecting, we're on Thursday now, I'm expecting most likely, if things hold up until Friday and there's no overwhelming sell pressure, Bitcoin will get a little bit of relief going into the weekend, and shitcoins will pump. So it's probably setting up for shitcoins to pump at the weekend, the lower cap stuff. And the way you'd see it, I mean, others D, which is the dominance of everything outside the top 10, again is bounced off the lows, is holding up. Total 3, same kind of thing. Total 3 is holding here. I don't expect Total 3 to flush all the way down there first. I expect it to push up and then probably go down. And it's this part here, if it does have a little push towards the highs, maybe even takes the highs out over the next few days, that's probably going to happen this weekend. Because when you have a compressing sideways choppy market on alts going into a weekend, they tend to do quite well on weekends. Because there's less pressure then. The eyes are not on Bitcoin. Everyone's not worrying about Bitcoin nuking or any of this stuff that's happening with ETFs. And it gives a little bit of relief for the market to move. Otherwise, as we look through the whole market, Bitcoin dominance is an interesting one to watch. You actually want to see Bitcoin dominance really, really nuke. This is the point at which you want to see Bitcoin dominance just break down. If you want to see positive flows on altcoins. You don't want to see strong Bitcoin anymore. I mean, strong Bitcoin's never bad, but if we see strong Bitcoin here and a big rally in BTCD, that's most likely going to mean that we actually have a pullback and Bitcoin performs stronger. So if you're wanting to see this altcoin season or a few weeks of altcoin rotation on the lower cap stuff, you actually want to see Bitcoin dominance drop. Will that happen? Not sure. I'm kind of in between thoughts at the moment. I think Ethereum's held up nicely, up at the highs here. To me, this is just a bullish consolidation. Rallied up, came back, sort of retest. Several days holding up at this level. There doesn't seem to be any natural selling, any real sell pressure to push Ethereum back down. Can it go back down? Absolutely. But it has also broken out and is consolidating. So to me, that's just bullish until proven otherwise. Solana, I still think is slightly weaker in terms of it's holding up well and has had it's obviously been far greater, the best performer of all the majors. But I still expect Solana to do something like this, right? A couple of months of sideways to build a proper base for a run towards the all-time highs. If you look even over here when it was last in this area, well, it was there from when? January and broke down in May. So it spent 5 months up here last time. We've only been up here for 3 weeks. You know, this area, this kind of 80 to 140, That's an area you want to see Solana building a base in. Link is doing the Link thing. So I closed my Link yesterday, like I mentioned. I don't think Link... I mean, on a weekly perspective, Link looks fine. Right? Link's had a really strong reversal on the weekly. Swept out those lows. Weekly bands look good. Nothing bad there from that perspective. I just don't think... I'm just not confident that this move, this push on Link, is necessarily going to be the one. Because overall, I'm still quite bearish on SEX alts, centralized exchange alts. You know, the larger cap stuff, the Links, the Lidos, the Frax, all these renders, WorldCoin, anything that's on a Bybit, Binance, etc. I just think they underperform, and stuff that's not on exchanges, major exchanges, the lower cap, that tends to be the stuff that runs next. So that's obviously why I've got the Unibot, the Multibit, etc. Because if this next phase plays out like I expect with the rotation, it's a phase where the low cap stuff runs and then gets listed onto the big exchanges, and then it ends. It is a sign of the end of a rally, the later stage. And I'm aware it might actually just be over. The whole rally might be over. Bitcoin will dictate that if we're going to go no alt season. And we're sort of getting towards that point, right? But for me, that's best dictated by Total 3. And Total 3 coming back down here, I think is inevitable. I think it's going to make its way back down there. So Total 3 is predominantly the big alts, right? Solana, BNB, Ripple, ADA, all those top 10, top 20, top 30. They're the ones that make up the vast majority of this. So if I think Total 3 is going to drop from 490 to 460, even if it maybe goes up first, then down, I don't know which direction it takes, right? Which path. But if it's going to go down there, those alts are just going to underperform. So if anything is going to rally in that time, it's not going to be the big alts. It's probably going to be the lower cap stuff that's catching up. And outside of that, it's not a place to take on more risk. So like I said at the start of the year in my 2024 plan, Q1, put no new money into the market. So I am actively stacking stablecoins, preparing to buy spot lower if we get that. I'm fully invested in spot with all the money I had before, but any new capital, any new cash I'm getting, I'm keeping on the sidelines. Because I just don't think that when Total 3 looks like this, it's necessarily the best time to buy alts for long-term holds. So like Unibot, Multibit, as you know, they're short-term trades. I'm not planning to hold those for a long time. AKT, holding for a long time, yep. ETH Bitcoin, that ratio split of ETH Bitcoin, yeah, won't sell that because that's a full cycle thing. I'll swap between ETH and Bitcoin, as I've said, but yeah. So just to be really clear, like, because it might sound like I'm, when you hear me holding these low caps like Unibot or Multibit, it might sound like I'm really risk on and I think the market's going to go loads higher. It's not that at all. It's that I think if anything goes up, it's the smaller caps. I do think the mid caps and higher caps underperform. And generally, I actually don't want much long exposure to this market at the moment. I'm also long WIF. But again, this is just a technical trade. And it's based very simply on this pivot. So I posted it in trading analysis. I got long around there. The Bybit listing highs acts as a nice pivot. You see we resistance again, false breakout, and then pushed away from it. I've now held. So obviously if it comes back down to there, I'll cut. But right now it's sitting in nice profit. Big spike there on the open, which I need to see if... I don't know if WIF went live yet on Coinbase, or if they announced it. I didn't check yet this morning. A fresh wallet withdrew $1 million SOL from Binance and spent $1 million to buy WIF today. 16 hours after this purchase, Binance announced the launch of the WIF Perpetual. So Binance are listing WIF perps. Okay. Yeah. Here we go. Binance announcement. When is it going to launch? Launches today, 2:15 UTC. Yeah. That's not really what you want to see. It's not really what you want to see. Binance listing adds I mean, if it was spot, it would be slightly different. The spot market. Because if you're going off of bonk, the bonk top didn't come when Binance Perps listed. The bonk top came when Binance Spot and Coinbase Spot listed. That's important as well to remember. So obviously this spike was because of the announcement. It got sold into. I would watch very closely on the funding rates. Right? So if Binance Perps list and WIF has... If funding goes negative or even neutral and you're seeing open interest rising, there could be a short squeeze to begin with. It's more when the spot market's open. That's when it really matters. And you can see this from... Again, nothing is ever perfect. But whenever Bonk listed on Binance Perps, all the way over here, that was when Bonk listed on Binance Perps. And a lot of people said that was the top. Look what happened. Turned out it wasn't the top. Right? Then when Bonk listed on Binance Spot, it was the top. So that's, I'm going to play it the same way. Because obviously WIF still has Binance Spot listing to come and potentially a Coinbase spot listing as well. So I'm just going to double check here and see if there is any announcement about spot market as well. Doesn't seem to be. Yeah, seems to be just perps to begin with. So the same playbook as they did with Bonk. So I wouldn't say this is the top. Most likely, I would say it's not the top yet. But for me, trading-wise, it's very simple. Above this 36 level, I still see it as being bullish. And then we'll see how it goes from there. So that's trade of the day, a bit of an update. Mostly focusing on the lower cap stuff. But this is much smaller percentage, right? This is the small part of your portfolio. This is not the 80% that's in majors. This is in the 5-10% that's in trading, into Unibot, Multibit, WIF, stuff like that, taking longs. So I'll really stress, this is not the time to be getting super long across the market. I think there's plenty of time to accumulate spot over the next few weeks before next leg higher. My base case is that I still think we have overextended in the short term, but everything's still good, liquidity's still good, the market's still broadly rising. I just think, and nothing has made me change my mind yet, I think that for 8 or 10 weeks, Bitcoin might go very, very low volatile, sideways, choppy, downward sort of grind, and it's a good opportunity for some alts to cool off and reaccumulate. I think if you're looking at your majors, you want to look at them on their 50 EMAs on the daily. And so you can look at Solana, which is around that level, right? And you can just have a scroll through. So we'll do this, right? Bitcoin's holding its 50. Ethereum's above its 50 and had held it. You can see here. Solana around the 50 had basically held it. Chainlink shown weakness below it but is above it. Lido can come all the way back to it. Frax, Say, Sui, right? Well overextended, these ones. Neon weak. Render, chopping around at it. And so the point I'm trying to make here is if you're going to see a deeper correction, it tends to go to the 200-day moving average. You'll actually notice if you go back and look through the market, the 100-day moving average rarely acts as support for altcoins in an uptrend. It actually tends to trend higher above the 200 and the 100 and touching the 50. And then when it actually finishes, it just crashes from the top down to the 200. So the way I see it is if something like Render continues to chop around here and holds the 50 for the next couple of weeks, whatever, if it chops around like this and that 50 continues to hold, that's it. To me, that's bottoms in. That's a real strong sign that it's going to base and leg up from there. Otherwise, if it shows weakness and falls below it, you're looking at that 200 to act as support thereafter. So you've got two paths that can happen. And really, the only thing that will tell you which path's coming is time. It needs time. The market has gone up pretty much uninterrupted for 3 months. We're only 2 weeks, 3 weeks into the correction. It's just not long enough of a correction for the market to sort out its direction. So it can either grind downwards like the red path, or it can grind sideways like the blue path. But I think in both scenarios, most of these alts that had the biggest runs are not going to pump again soon. Some stuff will always pump, right? There's always something that pumps. But as a whole, I think the market is still in a phase of sorting itself out. So if you're working, stacking cash, accumulating, good. You've plenty of time, in my opinion. The big thing you don't want to do is FOMO in at the highs again. So we'll just stick with render as an example. I'm sure at some point, render will pump up into that area. And you'll think, oh, I don't have enough time. Trust me. Either it holds this 50 EMA for a while and you then accumulate over here in a few weeks' time. Or it maybe even comes down into this support again. Whatever you do, don't FOMO in when it looks like it's going to break out again, if it happens in the next week or two, because I do strongly believe that there's many more weeks needed for the reaccumulation process before we go any higher. So that's it. GM, see you all later. I'm going to stream earlier today because I'm flying tonight, so probably 3 p.m. UTC. I'll put an announcement out. We'll do all coin requests. GM.